It is Throwback Thursday here on Main Street Sports Today, presented by the Tennessee Orthopedic Alliance of Columbia. That's Calvin White. I'm Maurice Patton. We'll be here with you for the next couple of hours talking local, regional, and national sports topics. And boy, is there plenty to talk about. Man, if you were on the socials yesterday evening after this show went off the air, and you there was a boatload of stuff going on. Major League Baseball action, college football action, all off the field, obviously. And we will get into a lot of it here over the next couple of hours. Calvin, good Thursday. What's up?
What's up? Enjoying a few days off before hitting the hardwood again tomorrow, and then the state All Star games over here at Austin P on Saturday. So I'm looking forward to going out and watching a little bit of that. Not looking forward to standing out in the cold again for 3 hours one last time, but after that, it's we're indoors until March when baseball starts.
Absolutely. Yeah, I don't envy you going over to the fort on Saturday, but should be some good football over there for the East West All-Star game. The Tennessee Athletic Coaches Association always does a great job with that, and so congrats to the guys that will be taking part in that, and best of luck. Yeah, and stay warm, as Calvin said. Off days. You said you are off? What is off? What is I'm not familiar with that concept. I
Yeah,
don't get it.
they're rare around here.
Yeah.
But went to basketball on Tuesday, and I don't believe there weren't many games being played yesterday, so um, just taking a little couple days off before I have to, get back out there and find stuff to, fill up our papers with next week.
I understand. I've got some wrestling to go to this evening. Battle Creek will be making its wrestling debut in its second year of existence as a high school. They have brought wrestling on board, and they've got community coming to their place this evening. So Main Street Murray will be on hand for that historical event. You can check out coverage at mainstreetmurray.com later tonight as the Grizzlies hit the mat. And then we'll be back into basketball as well this weekend. So, yeah, always something going on when you're covering high school athletics, as Calvin can also attest. Big show today. In the second hour, we will catch up with Ann Kimmel of Penalty Box Radio talking little Predators. The Preds on a little bit of a heater. 5 of their last 7 all of a sudden. They've got St. Louis coming to town tonight for the first of 2 meetings over 5 days. They will go to St. Louis on Monday as well. So, nice little stretch here for the Preds. They're having some success, and St. Louis is struggling. So we will check in with Ann and get her thoughts on what's been happening, what might happen tonight. Always fun when we can get Ann K _ Mama on Ice on with us. So looking forward to that. In the next segment, it is Thursday. It is Coach's Corner. We will be joined by Bobby Bentley from Battleground Academy. The Wildcats picking up the D2 AA state championship down at the Blue Cross Bowl last week, right about this time, actually. So excited to check in with Coach Bentley as well and get his thoughts on last week, the season, and what might be next for the Wildcats, because got to talk about back-to-backs and repeats and that kind of thing. Keep the pressure on those guys. So looking forward to speaking with him. We'll also be talking a little baseball. Winter meetings continuing down in Orlando. A lot of activity in the free agent market. Not so much trades, but a lot of guys moving around and a couple moving south, as we'll be excited to talk about here in a bit. Again, college football. Wild evening yesterday, wilder for some folks and others, unfortunately. We'll get into the Michigan situation here in a bit. Also, the Southeastern Conference will announce its 2026 football schedule. It will be a 9-game schedule for all of the conference teams, first time ever. So, again, that'll take place later tonight. We will take a little look at what might come out of that. Final segment will be the grab bag. There's some NASCAR news out there we'll get into. Thursday night football tonight at the NFL level and some NBA activity to talk about. And it is Throwback Thursday. At the top of the 3 o'clock hour, we'll be throwing it back to a recent conversation we had with our friend in Vegas, Willie G. Ramirez, talking a little WNBA and labor talks. So stick around for that at the top of the 3 o'clock hour. So, again, plenty to get to. Great show, as always, or as we think, always. Hope y'all do too. Um, let's go ahead and get started now that we've laid it out with yesterday's results and today's schedule on the rundown.
This is the Rundown.
Only one high school boys basketball score last night. Rossview downs Dixon County 54-49. No girls score. Could be located.
Despite efforts.
Yeah, we're tracking that one down. But tonight's schedule, Clarksville Academy is at Clarksville. All of these are double headers with girls games with boys to follow. Clarksville Academy is at Clarksville. Zion Christian travels to Dixon. Is that Dixon Academy? Is that a real school?
That
I've
is a real school.
I've never heard of that. Apologies,
Yes.
Dixon Academy. Davidson Academy travels to Good Pasture. White House Heritage is at Harpeth. Independence is hosting Brentwood. Santa Fe hosting Fairview. Summit travels to Shelbyville. And Cheatham County is at Westmoreland. All of those 6 p.m. Tip-offs for the girls' game.
Girls only games. Pleasant View is at Christian Community. That is a 6 o'clock start. Also at 6, South Haven Christian is at Clarksville Christian. Glencliff travels across Nolansville Road and up Thompson Lane to John Overton. At 6 o'clock also, Lead Academy's girls will play at Martin Luther King, and Maplewood is at Pearl Cone. Boys only games. KIP Antioch Global plays at Blackman at 6. Also, Gordonsville goes to Merrill Hyde at 6. At 6:30, it's Dixon County at Nolansville. And I am told, Calvin, that this score is accurate on the girls' side from last night's Dixon County Rossview matchup. Dixon County 45, Rossview 5. If that's inaccurate, we certainly had our doubts about it, but let us know, and we will take the necessary action along those lines. But what we've got is Dixon County 45, Rossview 5 in a Wednesday matchup. Ladies and gentlemen, that concludes your rundown. Your top story brought to you as always by the fine folks at Piggly Wiggly in Neely's Mill in Columbia. Be sure and check out their delicious daily deli lunch options available from 11 a.m. until 6 p.m. Also, their hand-cut meats and everything is cost plus 10% at the cash register. Piggly Wiggly, Neely's Mill, Columbia, bringing you our top story. And, as we mentioned, some free agent activity yesterday from the MLB winter meetings as the Braves announced they had signed former Vandy boy Mike Yastrzemski to a 2-year, $23 million deal. Exciting times as Braves fans kind of welcome a fourth outfielder who can play every day and the rotation at designated hitter that will come along with that. So don't expect Yaz to be in the outfield every day when you've got Profar, Harris, and Acuna going from left to right. But you've got a guy who can spot in at all three of those spots, can also pick up some ABs at DH, and possibly give Olsen a day off from time to time at first base. So really increase the flexibility in your outfield there. It's something that we've not seen in a while, and as a Braves fan, you're pretty excited for that one. Had a nice season with Kansas City last year, had played most of his major league career with the Giants, and again, played his collegiate ball here in Nashville at Vanderbilt. So the Braves add Mike Yastrzemski via the free agency route yesterday. Big news in Braves country.
Yeah, in the span of 2 seasons, the Braves kind of went from having Marcell Ozuna as the everyday left fielder to, sticking him at DH and, picking up Jerickson Profar and now Mike Yastrzemski to kind of shore up that outfield like you talked about. The Braves haven't had that much outfield depth in a while, it's felt like. But, good luck trying to get Matt Olson to take a day off. That's the
Yeah, yeah.
that he's the
Maybe
he's the
if you can just shift him to DH and he's still in the lineup, maybe he'll be okay with that. But I do believe he is the active leader for consecutive games played in Major League Baseball at this point. So yeah, you're right. Good luck getting him to sit. Um, Again, maybe DH will be palatable for him from time to time, but it's certainly an option, and I think that's the bigger deal. Like you said, they've not had a whole lot of outfield depth, certainly not quality depth, and Yastrzemski does bring that to the table. So a nice signing. But wait, there's more. Earlier today, about an hour or so before we came on the air, it was announced that the Braves have signed a 3-year, $45 million deal with former San Diego closer Robert Suarez. Robert Suarez, you may be familiar with that name because he's been an all-star each of the last 2 years. Familiar with that name because over those 2 years he has led Major League Baseball. So,
yeah.
for those who thought that Alex Anthopoulos was just sitting on his hands, not quite that.
Yeah,
Calvin.
He shores up the bullpen. That's I think the biggest thing that people would have told you that the Braves needed going into the winter meetings, and I saw it from, I think it was Mark Bowman earlier. The Braves, I don't know if they held a press conference or what, but Mark Bowman put it out there that the Braves said Robert Suarez would be the setup guy and Raisel Iglesias would stay the primary closer. But either way, that's when Raisel Iglesias is good, he's really good. So if you can get both of them on their A game, that's two quality late game bullpen type guys, and those are guys that the Braves have desperately needed over the last couple of years. So, as long as you can get everybody back healthy, and all the starting pitching comes back healthy, and they can go, and they don't have to rely on the bullpen as much as they did this past year, then as long as you can get everybody back healthy, I don't think anybody would, doubt the Braves' ability to put together another successful season.
Absolutely. With Suarez in the setup role, which, like you said, that appears to be the plan right now. Suarez gets the 8th, Iglesias gets the 9th. All of a sudden, you've really kind of shortened the game to 7 innings. And with the starting pitching that the Braves have, and if you can bridge, the 7th, maybe the 6th, with some of those other guys that are out there ahead of Suarez and Iglesias, and it pitching wise, it feels like the Braves might be back in business now. Still would like to kind of shore up that shortstop situation, but you feel pretty good about the Braves with these two moves. Iglesias coming early in the offseason and Suarez today, and especially as you watch the Mets implode with first Pete Alonso, first Edwin Diaz going to the Dodgers, and then Pete Alonso going to the Orioles yesterday. The Mets have issues. The Philadelphia Phillies seem to have addressed their biggest issue with bringing Kyle Schwarber back, but man, they got into their pocket on that one. 5 years, 150 mil. But the NL East is going to be interesting, and don't sleep on the Marlins either. So should be fun. But the Braves should be again back where we've gotten used to seeing them before this past season with these additions. And there's still a lot of time between now and spring training, so we'll see what happens. Meanwhile, also coming out of the winter meetings, heard a lot of rumblings about the Tigers moving Tarek Skubal, and obviously anybody that's any good that's being talked about moving, they get connected to the Dodgers, and so there's some rumblings that the Tigers and the Dodgers might be working on a deal to send him west. Rich get richer, I guess.
Go ahead and start the lockout. I mean,
Yeah, I don't know.
I mean
It
they've already got 5 guys that could be an ace on the majority of teams in baseball. What do you do with him? Like, I understand that's the back-to-back AL Cy Young winner, but who do you bump from the starting rotation to put Tarek Skubal in? You've got Yoshinobu Yamamoto, who's the World Series MVP. You got Blake Snell, who's a 2-time Cy Young winner. Tyler Glasnow, when he's healthy, is really good. So, I mean, kudos to at this point, you just have to tip your cap to the Dodgers if they're able to land him. And kudos to the Tigers if they're dumb enough to trade him.
I just don't understand why you would move a guy who has been as successful as he has been if you are trying to win. I don't know how you sell that to your fans if you're Detroit. I don't get that one. You've got an ace, not just, and not just an ace on your team, but the best pitcher in baseball the last 2 years, or certainly in the American League. But you're okay with moving him? Why? I don't.
And
It's unfortunate.
And their last 2 seasons were the most successful ones they've had since probably those days when they had that rotation with Justin Verlander and David Price, Max Scherzer, and Miguel Cabrera was winning MVPs, and they played in the World Series. Since then, the Tigers have kind of been, hanging out at the bottom of baseball until the last 2 years. And I mean, when we talked to, I don't remember who we talked to, but I think we agreed that the Tigers needed bats more than anything, just because they barely avoided the late season collapse to Cleveland this past year. Pitching hasn't been the problem with the Tigers the last couple of years.
Not at all. And this guy's a big reason for it. So, we'll see. It's nothing official yet, but where there's smoke, there's typically fire. And so we will see how that goes. Let's go ahead and take a break as we get started on Throwback Thursday on Main Street Sports Today, presented by the Tennessee Orthopedic Alliance of Columbia. When we come back, it's Coach's Corner, and we will be joined by Battleground Academy football coach Bobby Bentley, the Division II AA state championship coach of the Wildcats. Stick around.
Closer. All new Sportsbook, the latest gaming machines, live horse racing, and more. The Mid Gaming Hall, Kentucky Downs.
Winning just got closer.
This holiday season, the largest lantern festival in the country returns to Nashville Zoo. Experience more than 1,000 all-new handcrafted lanterns, towering creatures, magical worlds, and a North Pole village. At the center of it all, the Smashville Ice Rink. Welcome back to Zoolumination at Nashville Zoo. Bigger, brighter, and better than ever.
Busy bee, yeah, busy bee. If you need...
Hold on, y'all, hold on. I need to make a call. Hey, this is Brianna with Busy Bee. I'm giving you a call to let you know your technician is on his way.
3-3.
Bee, oh, busy bee. Guys, not yet, not yet.
Busy bee, oh,
Now
busy
I'm ready,
bee.
guys.
Call 775-7833.
Custom Stone Handlers supplies over 600 distributors and suppliers with quality stone products. Along with Riverstone, we produce and distribute over 100 building, landscape, and other bulk products. Our goal is to provide quality products, service, and partnerships to ensure our customers' success. We firmly believe the measure of any person or company is how you treat other people and customers. Give them a call at 931-490-4990 or visit CustomStoneHandlers.com.
Welcome back in to Throwback Thursday here on Main Street Sports Today, presented by the Tennessee Orthopedic Alliance of Columbia. I'm Maurice Patton. That's Calvin White. It's time for Coach's Corner, where we typically talk to one of our local coaches about what they've got going on with their program. And as we await the arrival of Battleground Academy football coach Bobby Bentley, Mark, can we go ahead with awards?
Yes.
Okay. Let's go ahead and go with our custom who went in to win Life Team of the Week. Besides the military, there's no more important or more vital, successful team building experience in high school athletics. Custom Stone Handlers invites you to get in the game. Our Custom Stone Handlers in to win Life Team of the Week is the Richland Lady Raiders. Picked up a couple of victories last week, one of those against perennial power Loretto. So the Lady Raiders are our Custom Stone Handlers in to win Life Team of the Week. Congratulations to Chad Hall and the Lady Raiders in North Giles County. Our Tennessee Orthopedic Alliance of Columbia Southern Middle Tennessee Athlete of the Week is Joel Coverston, junior at Summit, who averaged 25.5 points a game and a pair of victories last week. Scored 19 on Tuesday night, scored 32 in a 4-point win over Green Hill on Friday night. Joel Coverston, Summit junior forward, our Tennessee Orthopedic Alliance of Columbia Southern Middle Tennessee Athlete of the Week. Congratulations to him. Congrats again to the Richland Lady Raiders. And we continue to await the arrival of Bobby Bentley, coach of the Division II AA State Championship Battleground Academy Wildcats, who took care of business in a big way Thursday, 61-27 over Franklin Road Academy, avenging a regular season loss to the Panthers with that win, capping off an ultra successful season that also included a huge win down at Boyd Buchanan in the D2 AA state semifinals, 49-3. Really looking forward to talking to Bobby about that matchup in particular. But big win, big season for BGA. Kind of had the bullseye on their back throughout the year ever since they advanced to the D2 AA finals a year ago and lost to Christ Presbyterian Academy, but really looked like they were going to be the team to beat with CPA moving up to D2 AAA for this season. And despite that loss during the regular season to FRA, they really lived up to their end of the bargain all season. So exciting year for them. Bunch of guys off that team either are headed to the next level or will be soon headed to the next level because they had a good portion of underclassmen on that team, in addition to some great seniors, including Caden Marable, who was named D2 AA Mr. Football Tuesday during the presentation at Nissan Stadium. So big year for BGA. Excited to talk to Coach Bentley about it.
Yeah, I think you could have made an argument last year that CPA team that beat them in the state title game was arguably the best team in the state, regardless of classification. You know, CPA just rolled to that state title last year, and that was one of the things that I was wanting to ask Coach Bentley about because, that was his first year. They go to the state title game and, hung with arguably the best team in the state. And then, the one game they lose this year, they lose it to FRA. And then they just go and absolutely boat race them in the state title game. So I don't know what adjustments they made or if anything was different with either team. Like if anybody was hurt or anything like that to make that much of a difference between the two matchups. But I think when we talked about it before the season, when the Titans had their preseason high school media day over there at Nissan Stadium, BGA was one of the teams we talked about. They looked the part of a team that could compete for the D2AA state title, especially like you said with CPA moving up to AAA, and BGA just rolled through everybody not named FRA one time this year.
We now have the man on to discuss this situation. Bobby Bentley, coach of the Battleground Academy Wildcats, the Division II AA state champions, joining us here on Coach's Corner. Coach, welcome in. Well, Mark? Hello, hello. Here he comes. Coach looks like he's on the move. Coach, can you hear us? Bobby. Somebody talk to me. Bobby, can you hear us?
Let me give him a call.
Okay, do.
Riveting radio for the second consecutive week.
Lucky us, huh? Yeah, it's yeah. I'm kind of speechless. Like you said, Bentley in his second season at Battleground Academy after a stellar coaching career over in South Carolina in the prep ranks and some work at the collegiate level as well, comes back, takes over the program, guides them to the state finals in his first season with, again, a boatload of young talent, and a lot of that showed up again this time around. Another great season, capping it off the way they wanted to, obviously. We talked about Caden Marable, the Mr. Football winner. He is headed to Columbia University, Ivy League. They've got a bunch of other guys that have got some stuff going on. Nate Fleming is heading to Vanderbilt, two-way lineman who has just been dominant, missed some time with a knee injury, got back in time for that semifinal matchup against Boyd Buchanan, and according to our friend Charles Pulliam of the Williamson Herald, he was just a man among boys in that ball game. And I think the entire blue and gold sideline, the visiting sideline, they're both blue and gold actually, was fired up for that ball game. Again, really excited to talk to Bobby Bentley about, this season and their stretch run during the postseason. Mark, do we have him? I think we got him. Bobby.
Yes, sir. How you doing?
Hey, how are you doing, man?
I'm good, man. Just doing a little traveling, trying to get to a little Christmas for my little grandbaby and down in Prattville. So I appreciate you guys dealing with me with my technology issues here.
Hey, we appreciate you dealing with it. Congratulations.
Thank you so much, man.
And I was curious, did you and Eric Kimmery get that game set up between you and Baylor?
We did, but we couldn't get the logistics with. We got the field, we got the officials, we got everything, but we got a sponsor. But with the guys playing basketball, and we had two guys in the All-Star game. He had guys in back. It just didn't work out. I don't know how we could have done it, but anyway, we couldn't do it. We tried.
That's unfortunate. I just think the attempt is pretty cool. A couple of, Eric Kimmery coming from the South Carolina prep ranks as well, and you and he obviously have a bit of a background. Him coming to Baylor and winning it in D2 AAA, and y'all getting it done last weekend in AA. Bobby, I gotta ask, man. I don't know that I've seen you address it. The video ahead of the Boyd Buchanan game. What did you do with that?
I didn't have to do anything with it. The kids did it all. They had that thing, on our text group, we have a team text group. They had that thing on there Friday night. They had it at our meeting on Sunday. They posted it. They showed it to the team. I mean, the kids were excited they said we was a physical, and I couldn't believe it, but it helped the guys for sure. The guys were very excited about being able to go play a game and show that we are physical, and it was actually fun looking back on it.
I would imagine as a coach, as a veteran coach, and you've probably had some dealings with Gary Rankin at some point. It's like, what would make you say something like that?
I'm not sure. I know Gary's a good guy. I've recruited his players. I've been in his office at Alcoa, and I just think sometimes, you're thinking about it. He probably didn't realize he was not in a locker room setting. These guys, our stuff right now is probably taped. Probably just wasn't aware. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And probably some stuff you say in a locker room, but man, it helped fire us up. And I'm not sure if we haven't played a better game, and it was a good result for us.
And the revenge tour continued. 2 weeks later, you caught a Franklin Road Academy team that handed you your only loss of the season. Again, I don't guess you had to say a whole lot to get your guys ready for that one either.
Yeah, that first game, and again, FRA is a good program. Coach Geisinger is one of my best friends in this area with coaching. He does a great job. He's got good schemes. He does a good job with his players. He's got really good players. But that first game, man, was weird. Like, we were up 14-0, and I'm telling you, at halftime, our kids were frustrated. They thought we were losing. They thought it was almost like a twilight zone, if you will. It was the game we didn't have Maddox. We didn't have Maddox Porter, and we didn't have our running back. He had broken his foot. Fletcher got hurt on the very first carry. Fletcher Fields being our other running back. So I didn't call but one running play the whole game. So honestly, I felt some kind of way. I was in my feelings. I didn't think I called a good game. And when I don't feel like I've called a good game, that's probably not a good day. And it was just a bad deal. So we were kind of wanting to play FRA again for the simple reason we felt like we played so poorly in that first game.
Coach, obviously last year, your first season, when you guys go play in the state title game last year against CPA, I was telling Mo before we got you on here, I think you could have made an argument that last year's CPA team was the best team in the state, regardless of classification. You hung with them for, most of the game. Did you learn anything from that game that you were able to kind of take into this year?
Yeah, I learned a lot. You got to play defense, and we didn't play defense last year. And we ran a 3-4 defense, and we jumped the 3-4. We went to the defense that I ran, my entire career in high school. We ran a 3-3, which is where we won a lot of championships with it. And our defensive coaches took the 3-3 that they took it and ran with it, evolved it more in more detail. We had the perfect middle linebacker for defense in Elijah Fernandez, and we didn't allow a 100-yard rusher this year. So our defense worked, and our defense coaches did a great job putting our guys in the best spot.
And, Caden Marable, your quarterback, obviously ended his season with the Division II AA Mr. Football Award. That award speaks for itself, but, just how good was he for you this year?
He's awesome. When you play good defense and you got the quarterback that we have, with the weapons that we have at wide receiver, it just creates a lot of space. We get the ball back quickly because our defense has given us the ball. You got a quarterback that gets you out of bad plays, and you have guys that can go score. You have offensive line that can block. So it's a recipe for a very good team, and hopefully we can repeat that energy next year.
Bobby Bentley, Battleground Academy football coach, joining us on Coach's Corner here on Main Street Sports Today, presented by TOA of Columbia. Bobby, to me, watching that game last week, Elijah Fernandez is a kid that isn't talked about enough.
I agree with you. Me and my son coaches as well, and he was at the game, and he literally just got through talking to me before we came on, Mo. He said, man, 27 is a good football player. And I said, yeah, Elijah Fernandez, he's kind of the heartbeat of our football team. It's funny you say that because a lot of people have not taught him, but he's the energy year of our football program. You come to practice, he's making sure the music's on. He's making sure the guys are getting their calls. He's making sure the guys are on field. He's the leader of our football team, without a doubt.
Feels like, Bobby, the 3-3-5 is probably a defense that maybe more high schools ought to be using, just for the fact that it feels like you can come up with more defensive backs than you can defensive linemen and linebackers.
That's it, Mo. We felt like we had three really good defenses, and we didn't have those outside backers that you need in a 3-4. So we got a bunch of little guys that can run, and we got a bunch of little guys that like to hit. So you put 8 of them off the line of scrimmage and let them go run to the ball, and let those 3 up front disrupt. And they did a good job of that. And, obviously 27 Fernandez is kind of the eraser. He kind of makes a lot happen in the middle. So it fits our scheme, and we understand it, and we know the weaknesses of it. So it allowed us to thrive on defense this year.
And when one of those disruptors up front is Nate Fleming, that doesn't hurt either.
Yeah, and he not only had a good year, but he was out for about 5 games with his injury. And then Aiden Woodruff is a perfect defensive end, and then we had a really good nose guard with Justice Pittman, who's probably underrated a little bit. I think you'll see him this spring, get some big D1 offers. He's 6'3", 280 pounds. He's a coach's kid. He's got great bloodline. So those 3 guys were very, very good football players.
He does have great bloodline. Don't tell his dad, though. He and I went to school together.
Did you really? Oh, Jack.
Yeah.
Jack's a good one, man. He's kind of an unsung hero in our staff as well.
We were at MTSU at the same time. I think the world of Jack, and he's one of the people that I'm happiest for that y'all were able to get this done, actually. So just talk, Bobby, about coming in your second year. This is a program that has had some success, but not to this level, and to be able to get it done as quickly as you were able to get it done. What's the significance of that?
I think there's a couple things, Mo. I think number one, the administration gave the resources to hire staff. A head coach is only as good as his staff, especially if on his side of the ball, my side of the ball, obviously being offense. They allowed us to have a good offensive line coach, a good receiver coach, and a good running backs coach. So they gave us those resources. Then you say, okay, now we need to go to defense. Give us some resources to hire a D coordinator. We hired Nathaniel Wellner. Now you have a good co-coordinator in Tony Butler. You got some resources to hire him. Obviously, Jack was already there. I knew him from Brentwood Academy. I knew I was going to keep him. And then, we were able to bring in Garnett Hollis to coach our defensive back. So all of a sudden, you got some good coaches and coaches that have been there, done that. And it just gives a recipe to turn the program around quickly. I think also the fact that Fred Eves, our AD, has a strength coaching background. He helped us in the weight room. And then we hired a very good strength coach in Donnie Gumble. I think we've got one of the best strength programs in the country. Our guys have gotten bigger. Our guys have gotten more athletic in a year or 18, 19 months that we've been there.
Coach, you guys scored
you talk about bringing
Coach, you guys scored just under 50 points a game this year. We talked about Caden Marable. Obviously, he's the kind of the X factor in that offense. But, those other guys on offense, what was it about that offense that was able to click all year to where you're able to, put up such big numbers week in and week out?
Well, you got to have some consistency up front. We got our center, Caden Adams, did a great job for us. We have a left tackle in Cohen Dial, who's a 10th grade All-American. He's 6'7", 300 pounds, been on the country. He didn't give up one sack all year, one sack. And then our left guard, a very, very steady guy, senior Jackson Harlan, who is probably one of our best linemen all year. One of those guys at high school football. He's not going to play football in college, but he's got a state championship ring as a reward of all his hard work. We had an 8th grader start at right. This was a good player. touchdowns.
Coach, you mentioned an 8th grade starter on the offensive line. We lost him, Mark.
Apparently so.
That's unfortunate. I'm intrigued about that 8th grader. That's in that at that level of competition, throwing an 8th grader out there in the trenches is kind of crazy talk. But he's won a lot more games than I have. So and state championships. But that's pretty wild. I don't know if we're going to get Bobby back at this point to continue the conversation, but that's certainly a point that I would want to pursue if we do. We should probably just go ahead and move on, though, at this point. I think we got plenty out of, well, what do you think? Mark, do we have him? We think he's back.
Yeah, I'm back.
Bobby, can you hear us? Yeah, we're here. Hey,
Yes,
we appreciate you coming back. I was just trying to quiz you a little bit more about this 8th grader. Did I hear that right? You had an 8th grade starter in your offensive line?
Yeah.
He's gone again.
He's gone again. Okay. Well, we will shut it down, and we will save that for the next time we have Bobby Bentley on with us. But that was Bobby Bentley, Battleground Academy football coach. They just won the Division II AA state championship this past weekend, and that was Coach's Corner here on Main Street Sports Today, presented by the Tennessee Orthopedic Alliance of Columbia. Let's go ahead and take a break here. Let's come back. Let's continue with a little college football talk because, man, there's plenty to talk about from one town in particular. Stay tuned.
Columbia Power and Water Systems is dedicated to bringing our customers reliable, local service. Whether you're turning on a light switch, your faucet, or streaming on TV, our dedicated team members from here in Murray County work every day to keep you on. If you need us, call us 931-388-4833 or visit cpws.com. CPWS, local service, local support.
Zion Christian Academy at zioneagles.org or 931-388-7531. You can schedule your appointment to visit their beautiful campus. Again, zioneagles.org or 931-7531 to schedule your visit today.
Nashville's Nutcracker, presented by Nashville Ballet, returns to TPAC November 29th through December 28th. This holiday season, audiences will journey with Clara and the Nutcracker Prince through Nashville's history and the land of sweets. Tickets on sale at NashvilleBallet.com.
We continue Throwback Thursday here on Main Street Sports Today, presented by the Tennessee Orthopedic Alliance of Columbia. In the next segment at the top of the hour, we'll throw it back to a recent conversation we had with Willie G. Ramirez talking a little WNBA and their labor talk situation. So be sure and stick around for that. Right now, though, we're going to talk a little college football, and particularly college football at Wade's favorite program, the University of Michigan. Things really imploded in Ann Arbor yesterday with Sharon Moore's dismissal for cause, according to the university, for a inappropriate relationship that he had with a member of the staff. And I think, Calvin, you and Wade discussed a little bit of that on the show yesterday. Is that right?
We were in the middle of talking to Joe Sullivan about Belmont basketball.
Okay.
And, the notification comes across the screen. We I don't think we mentioned it during the show, but Wade
Okay.
made sure to bring it up to us and to myself and Mark after we got off the show.
Yeah, well, the dismissal was bad, but it got worse as the evening went. Apparently, Moore was later arrested after breaking into said staffer's home, I think, and it's just been a bad situation all the way around. The guy goes from being fired to being in legal custody. Was in custody at the Washtenaw County Jail last night, detained for an investigation into potential charges. And it just got out of control in an unfortunate way yesterday, for Sharon Moore, former Michigan football coach. And all of a sudden, a program that had been, obviously one of the blue bloods and one of the bastions of college football has really been in a lot of chaos here over the last little bit, between the sign stealing situation and the Harbaugh recruiting violations and his suspension in the middle of his last season, his departure, Moore taking over. Now this lot going on in Michigan, and I think it really kind of puts a premium on being able to get the right guy into that position this time around. And it's interesting that current Alabama coach Kalen DeBoer's name is coming up as a potential replacement for Moore in this deal. A coaching cycle that began about a month into the season. We are now approaching the college football playoffs, and it's still ongoing. Yeah, at what a lot of people would consider to be the top of the game. I mean, the football coach at the University of Michigan is a pretty coveted position, I would think. And I think it'll be interesting to see who they are ultimately able to get, because with the way the college football schedule has changed, we had December signing day a week ago. You've got playoffs coming up. You got the portal to deal with, all of that other stuff. This almost isn't a great time to be looking for a coach.
No, and Penn State went through this, exact same thing. Kind of scrambling to find a head coach, and landed on, I think, pretty easily the best option that was available, in Matt Campbell. But that's what I told Wade after we got off the show yesterday. James Franklin should have waited 2 more weeks to take a job. But even with all that stuff that was going on at Michigan while Jim Harbaugh was there, Jim Harbaugh consistently had Michigan as one of the better teams in the country. They had beat Ohio State for, I think it was four straight years before this year.
Mm-hmm.
They just rolled to a national championship a couple years ago before Jim Harbaugh left for the NFL again. But like you said, the head football coach at Michigan is not only the most famous man in Michigan, he's one of the most famous men in the country. And, we saw that with Jim Harbaugh. Now, Jim Harbaugh had a little bit of notoriety just, his coaching days in the NFL, but, still a very good college football coach. And, unfortunately, Sharon Moore put himself in a bad spot. And I guess more importantly for the university, put the football program in a bad spot, trying to find a football coach to slate.
Yeah, it's gonna be not easy, and it's gonna be interesting, and I think a lot of other programs are going to be kinda on pins and needles. If you are Alabama, you don't like to hear that your coach might be leaving as we sit here on December 11th. Ditto for, Notre Dame, where Marcus Freeman's name has been connected with this thing in a short period of time. Lincoln Riley at Southern Cal is being thrown around. And if you believe social media, maybe folks at Georgia and Vanderbilt should be a little nervous as well. Now, it doesn't make much sense to me, for a Kirby Smart to leave a Georgia, or, even for a Clark Lee to leave a Vanderbilt at this point. But, yeah, I mean, maybe Michigan makes an offer that somebody can't refuse. I don't know. I just think that this is one that they have to get right for sure. And so they may be casting a little bit wider a net than you would expect under normal circumstances.
Yeah, I think it's just one of those things where, it's a massive job, and people are just blindly connecting some of the big name coaches in the sport. I mean, if you're Kirby Smart, Georgia's going to build you a statue one day. With everything he's been able to do at Georgia and everything that they're going to continue to do for him to help him be successful, I wouldn't see a reason to leave Georgia. If you're Clark Lee, you just got a massive extension from Vanderbilt. If Clark Lee keeps doing what he did this year at Vanderbilt, he's definitely going to get a statue. Lincoln Riley, that was the big thing when he left Oklahoma was, he was a West Coast guy that wanted to go, back out there to USC. Now, they haven't had a ton of success out there with him. But, good coach at Oklahoma, had them in the playoff when it was still at 4 teams. Lost to Kirby Smart once that I remember when Baker Mayfield was still there. But, if Michigan is able to land at least a decent hire at this point, I think that, you look at that as a win. Now, obviously, the expectations at Michigan are higher than just about any place in the country, but, they've got to land somebody big or the fan base is going to lose their mind.
Yeah. And, I may put a little bit more in this than it warrants. I'm not sure. But the fact that Kirby Smart is coaching the program that he played in, the fact that Clark Lee is coaching the program that he played in, it seems like to me that there's something there's a degree of something special to those situations. And when you put with that, like you said, Georgia's going to do everything possible to help him be as successful as possible. And Vanderbilt seems at this point to be doing the same thing for Clark Lee. It doesn't make sense for those guys to leave. But again, I could be looking at this a lot different than your typical college football coach does. I'm not sure. But, I mean, Michigan's going to take their shots in whatever directions they're going to take them, but those just don't seem like realistic shots to me. Kalen DeBoer, word is that he's not real comfortable there, and I don't know that they're real comfortable with him. I mean, other than the timing, they might be okay with him leaving, but I don't think they would be okay with him leaving here in mid to late December as it's shaping up to be. So Michigan definitely has its work cut out for them in this process after firing Sharon Moore. Interest in development in college football for sure. Also, apparently, as we mentioned earlier in the show, the Southeastern Conference will be announcing its 9-game football schedule for 2026 for its conference participants later tonight. I'm pretty sure it's a made for TV rollout for that. But already we kind of know the 3-team permanent opponents for each of the 16 teams. Other than that, we'll find out the rest tonight. I mean, a lot of people will be looking at this just in terms of how some of these teams are able to negotiate the 9-team schedule and make their way into college football playoff contention. Last year there was a lot made of the 8-game schedule that Texas got in the conference. A lot of folks felt like it was the easiest schedule that they could have gotten, and they parlayed it into a playoff spot. So there will be a lot of attention paid to this once it comes out tonight.
Yeah, and it like you said, it's obviously a made for TV thing. It's just like the NFL schedule release. Like, just post the schedule and let me look at it. But I think the 9-game schedule is. I won't say whether it's good or bad, but I think I think going forward it would be a good way for us to better identify who the better teams in that conference are. Just with them being able to go against the best of the best in the conference week in and week out. There might be years where you have a team that half their conference schedule is the bottom half of the conference. So with going to an extra game, going to 9 games, I think we'll have a better understanding of who the better teams in the conference are, and hopefully we can kind of parlay that into who we think are the most fitting teams to get into the college football playoff.
That's certainly the hope. So stay tuned. We'll be talking more about that tomorrow once we get the announcements, I'm sure. Let's go ahead and take a break here as we continue Throwback Thursday on Main Street Sports Today, presented by the Tennessee Orthopedic. We'll be throwing it back to our conversation with Willie G. Ramirez talking WNBA. Stick around. Jones & Lang Sporting Goods here in Columbia has been outfitting teams, officials, and anybody else from T-ball to college for 50 plus years. Be sure and check them out at 931-388-8060 or online at jonesandlang.com. Jones & Lang Sporting Goods, the look of a winner.
Zion Christian Academy at zioneagles.org or 931-388-7531. You can schedule your appointment to visit their beautiful campus. Again, zioneagles.org or 931-7531 to schedule your visit today.
Is your internet slowing you down? It's time for an upgrade. Whether you're at home, working from your home office, or at your business, it's time to unleash the speed you need with speeds up to 1 gig at CPWS for as low as $70 a month. Give us a call, 931-375-7777. Local service, local support, CPWS.
Piggly Wiggly, located in Neely's Mill Shopping Center, is Columbia's locally owned and operated Cost Plus 10 grocery store dedicated to serving the community with low prices and smiling faces. Piggly Wiggly offers fresh, hand-cut meats daily as well as daily hot plate lunches from their deli counter. You're certain to see smiling faces and a helping hand when you're here at Piggly Wiggly. Come by and check out our fresh produce, high-quality meats, and more. Down home, down the street, we'll see you at the Pig.
Joining us now from Vegas, it's Willie G. Ramirez. Mr. Ramirez, good afternoon. Thanks for taking some time with us today. Can't hear you, Willie.
There we go.
There we go. There we go.
Got
Good
him now.
afternoon, sir. What's up?
happening? How are we?
We're doing well. How are you?
Doing good, doing good. Trying to ease in. I just done 10 straight days of events, either here in Las Vegas or working out of Las Vegas, covering things remotely. Last week, College Basketball Central. We had the Players Era Tournament here in Vegas, Players Era Championship, as they call it, with a lot of good basketball, and then the introduction of 4 women's teams starting the women's, and they all announced they're coming back next year. They want to go bigger. So the highlight for me, as you know, Mo, with as much as I love women's basketball, was getting to see 3 of the top 4 teams in the nation. Duke being the 4th. Can you imagine that? Last week, the 4 women's basketball teams in Las Vegas for the Players Era, 3 of them in the top 4, and Duke was the team that was not ranked. So we had South Carolina here, we had UCLA here, we had Texas here, 2, 3, and 4. The 4 seed wins it. And then I got a chance to see some of the men's teams. And let me tell you something, Michigan is no joke. So Michigan on the men's side, Texas was really impressive to me. And, of course, just catching up with Don Staley and UCLA and whatnot. I got a big project that was due a couple of days ago, but I'm giving it its just due on UCLA senior Kiki Rice.
Wade will be pleased to hear you say that Michigan is no joke. He is our in-house Wolverines fan, and he was pretty excited about their performance out there this past week, as were, a lot of folks that weren't Michigan fans, including yourself, obviously. But Willie, wanted to get with you because the WNBA's collective bargaining agreement continues to be a topic of discussion, and it feels like it's fair to say talks aren't going as well as either the players or the league would have hoped at this point.
Yeah, I think it's the players. Obviously, they're whether they believe what is being offered is enough, or that they think that there's more. I'm not sure. Obviously, we're not privy to that. There are people that are a little more dialed in with the league office, and they're getting their leaks from sources in terms of what's on the table. But as far as what the bargaining chip is and what the holdup is, it remains to be seen. I can only imagine it has to do with the revenue share. When currently, under the league's latest proposal for 2026, the max salary would be guaranteed $1 million base, projected revenue pushing total earnings for max players to more than $1.2 million. And then the average player salary projected to exceed $500,000, and then also exceed $225,000 in the first year. Whereas right now, your guarantees are right around, without being specific, in the range of around $60,000, and you're maxing out with no more than around $275,000. So the salary cap is proposed to increase to $5 million in 2026, and that's tied directly to the revenue growth in each year of the CBA. So that's the money part of it. It is a significant hike. If they're unhappy with that, I can only imagine what they're asking for. And it has to do with based on the media deal that the WNBA cut and what they think. Remember, a lot of people keep saying, well, the players want revenue share, but the league hasn't been making any money. They're not asking for revenue share based on what's been made. It's on what they're going to make and the growth off of that. So you have to excuse me. Matter of fact, I got a checkup after this live. I'm going to get a shot. That it makes sense that they want more. I just don't know how much more you can ask for, because when you're getting a significant hike, especially when I would imagine the proposal, there's built-in growth for the next CBA, right? It's not going to stay at this number. It's going to continue to grow in percentage.
Interesting stuff. The money doesn't seem to be the only issue, though, Willie. But I mean, that's an issue, and it's a big one. But seems like the WNBA has proposed a couple of things. One, a different start time for the season, about 2 months earlier, basically. What would that look like if they start in March? Obviously, the rookies that you get out of the NCAA wouldn't be available. When do you add them? Do you add them? How does that work? And what's the rationale behind starting earlier?
I haven't had a chance to, the last couple of weeks with some of the stuff that's been here in Vegas, I've run into several WNBA players, to be nameless, and that stuff wasn't on the table at the time. It was more or less the revenue share. So I haven't had a chance to really brief anybody or see anybody or talk to anybody on that. But as far as the existing players, I don't know if they would have a problem in starting early. What it looks like and how it impacts the outside of the world. Well, it would impact some of the players, to be honest with you, because if they're overseas, they have to come back sooner. They're used to coming back by May 1st and getting in back to the States and getting acclimated, getting their sleep, and then playing catch up back in America. So that would interfere with their money that they're making overseas. Number one. Number two, you're talking about starting. If you're starting in March, you're starting during the NCAA tournament. Let's say it's March 15th. That's about when the tournament starts. So there's 2 weeks of training camp where, and I've asked this question the last 2 years for mental health aspect to Caitlin Clark, to Haley Van Lith, to Paige Beckers, to Nika Mule, where they start in October. And if they are a national contender, they're running through the end of March, maybe the first week of April, right? And then they go to the draft a week later, and 2 weeks later they're in training camp, and then they're playing in the league. So they would have no time off. They wouldn't even have those 2 weeks. They would have 1 week from and the WNBA is demanding in terms of when you show up for the draft and appearances and the B-roll and the footage that they put out there. So it would really impact the top rookies, right? The top draft picks of all of them in both rounds. So that would be tough. It would be tough on Unrivaled, and I have to wonder if they're being manipulative, where it looks very legitimate, right? Hey, we're playing back-to-back games. We're playing 3 games in 4 nights. This is ridiculous. We need to figure out the schedule. Okay, well, we're going to extend it for you. Here's what we can do. They can't go any later into the season because some of these WNBA teams share venues with NBA teams. So how are you all of a sudden going to – you can't extend it further past October. You're going to have 2 teams going to a certain date in October, maybe the first week of November. You can't go any further because now you're in a 7-game finals. And if they eventually want to extend the opening round and the second round, that causes a problem. So the only way to do it is start sooner. So, but at the same time, they're thinking, well, I guess you're going to have to figure something out with Unrivaled, right? Because Athletes Unlimited, which will be back in Nashville, by the way, I believe is in February. So, or January or February, so that it wouldn't necessarily affect them. They would actually hit the ground running with not a lot of time to worry about in between where they get cold. They could just go right to training camp. Unrivaled, it could impact the overseas players. It could impact, and obviously the rookies coming out of college. It definitely would impact them because there's no break. And remember, no break means they have been playing basketball since October.
Willie G, another thing that's coming out of this collective bargaining talk, at least from the WNBA side, is the proposal of a WNBA draft combine. Is something that they're looking forward to maybe introducing on the table. This is kind of something that's mirroring maybe the style that the NBA did with its latest proposal. What are your thoughts on a draft combine for college prospects coming into the WNBA?
It makes sense to have a combine. The problem is the NBA, and when they get going, remember the season ends in June. The draft is then. They don't start until October, right? So there's a lot of time in between. When they're going to get those players to go to the combine, I don't know if they were to extend this season. So it would. I mean, I don't have a problem with it. It makes sense, right? To get a look at it. The thing is, you have WNBA coaches attending these games. They know what they're capable of doing. They already know their style of play. I mean, combines are great and they're fine and everything. You're looking at individual skills, but in reality, a lot of those combines, just like we see with the NFL combine, they're looking at the vertical, their sprints, how they run here. But you still want to know what they can do in game time. I don't have a problem with it if that's what they want to do, to put them together in this little mini camp and get their individual skills and whatnot, skill sets. But I think they want to know what they can do in a team aspect. So I think the bigger issue that they may have with the league, which was reported by Front Office Sports as Annie Constable, is the housing. The league is looking to take away the housing from the WNBA players, whereas right now there's X amount of dollars based on each market. Like in Las Vegas, I believe, you could get something. You get a stipend of around $1,100 a month. In New York, it climbs to like $2,700 a month. And if you have kids, there's expenditures for that as well to help you out with housing. Well, if you're going to all of a sudden get an increase, right, where the minimum salary for a rookie is going to be $200 plus $1,000, and the average salary is going to be somewhere in $500,000, and you're capping out around 1.2, they're going to take away the housing. It makes sense. The problem there is with a lot of these places is you're signing leases. What if you get traded? What if you get cut? We all know how hard it is to come into the league and then sustain that spot. We all know how touchy the WNBA coaches are and will cut you at any given time. So if you are no longer on the WNBA's dime or have a relationship with the local team with certain residences, certain places, certain wherever they may be staying, luxury condos, and you have an agreement and they can leave, and the league or the team may take care of it. Now you're on your own. So I think that they need to – I'm sure that they would have to define the terms with that, or maybe keep a relationship with the teams. For instance, in Las Vegas, where the Aces facility is, which is right next to the Raiders in Henderson, is you have 3 or 4 different places and you have an agreement and say, hey, we're going to have our players. They can come check out your place. Here's what we want to do. And then it's on them. But maybe have them sign a 6-month agreement with an opt-out in case they don't, they get traded or they're not with the team. Because there's a lot of other I's to be dotted and T's to be crossed when it comes to that situation.
I've always been fascinated by that aspect of athletics, Willie, particularly, we've got a minor league team here. Y'all have a minor league team for now in Vegas, the up and down, the trades, that kind of thing. And those guys, a lot of times they're not getting here and they don't know if they're going to get here until they're here. And trying to get that housing aspect addressed is, I would expect that to be a pretty arduous task. And so to that point, it would seem like there's got to be a happy medium between the WNBA or the team taking care of that and the players being told you're on your own. It's got to be something there, just because of the volatile nature of you're here, you're not, that kind of thing. It'll be interesting to keep an eye on. But again, just generally speaking, it sounds like things aren't as close to being resolved as anyone would have liked as we sit here the first week of December.
It's not. I don't think it's anywhere close. And the problem is, and I could be dead wrong on this, but, when you're on the outside looking in or whether you're covering it, I don't think it was a good look on either side. When you had Nafisa Collier calling out Kathy Engelbert the way that she did, when you had Kathy Engelbert coming into the press conference the way that she did here in Las Vegas, I'll tell you right now, it was a very uneasy feeling for a lot of us who know Kathy well. She's always treated the media, to those she has a relationship with fairly. And I can tell you this, in years past since Vegas has been here, Kathy walks around the Michelob Ultra Arena and shakes hands and says hi. And she's a pro. She rolls with the security team, but I roll up on her and there's a big hug and it's like, hey, can I talk to you real quick away from everybody? Yeah, no problem, Willie. Okay, and we go. Kathy was nowhere to be seen after her press conference here in Las Vegas. She stepped in that room, she spoke, and she was gone, ghost. So not necessarily a good look with that tension that brewed between Fee and Kathy. And so when that's put like that, the way that it was put on both sides, it's almost as if nobody's going to back down now, because you sort of drew a line in the sand before you had to. You grow to that certain point, and maybe the players could say, well, no, we've been growing to that point for years. But here's the thing. I love the WNBA, and that's why, Mo, since you and I have been introduced from our good friend Teresa, you've had me on more times to not talk about Las Vegas sports, but to talk WNBA league-wide. But I will tell you this. As they've continued to grow power, they've never not had a complaint. At some point, you got to stop complaining about everything and just be happy at some point and say, okay, like for instance, the schedule. How many times have we seen during a season a player say, we have to do a better job about worrying about the health and welfare for these women. We're playing 3 games in 4 days. We're playing 3 road games in 4 nights. We played back to back in LA and then Vegas, and then we have a day off, but we got to go to Phoenix. Okay. So does the NBA, and they play 82 games. So does Major League Baseball. Okay, that's not as physical, up against body. How about the NHL? NHL is more physical than the WNBA, the NFL, the NBA, Major League Baseball. They're hitting you into the boards. They're playing. Golden Knights are going back east. They're playing the Metro 3, I think, across 4 nights or 5 nights. Jersey, Rangers, Islanders. That's a physical game, and they're doing the exact same thing in terms of scheduling. So get over it when it comes to having to play 3 games in 4 nights, 3 games in 5 nights, 3 games in 6 nights with only 1 night in between and travel and this. We need rest and recovery. Welcome to the world of professional sports. I love the WNBA. I love women's basketball, but they have not stopped complaining. They won the battle for charter flights. They got them. Okay, what can we complain about next? I get it. You guys have been buried. You've been behind the 8 ball. You have not gotten everything that you deserve, and you still need to get more. But at some point, you have to look and say, okay, we're getting stuff. It's coming, and just chill and be patient, because I feel as if if they got everything that they demanded in this CBA, when all said and done, next training camp comes, they're going to be like, yeah, but there's a lot of work to do. What? What now? I love them to death. I do. I love them to death. I think Asia Wilson is probably one of the greatest human beings that this town could ever be thankful for. I really do. She is the face of sports in Las Vegas. Hands down, period. And I'm not singling her out about to say she complains, but I'm just saying that's how much I recognize, appreciate, and love women's sports. But at some point, understand and recognize that it's not a continuing negotiating process of, okay, we got this. Next, here's what we want. Here's what we want. We're not doing it. We're not doing this. You're not doing this. You're not. And make it make sense. Again, I'll go back to it. I think this every single year about scheduling. When they complain about having back-to-back nights and we need to do a better job for rest and recovery. We're human beings. I get it, but the NHL has been doing it for years upon years upon years. The NBA, the same thing. So are those seasons spread out? Yes, I get it. But that's what the WNBA is about to do, Mo. Right? That's what they're about to do. They're spreading it out. What are they going to say? Hey, we did what you asked. Spread the season out. Oh, but now it's in March. Now what are we supposed to do about Unrivaled? What are we supposed to do about overseas? Well, I don't know. Why don't you come into the league and tell us what you want us to do? How about this, players? If you're upset about the scheduling and it's condensed, come make the schedule and we'll see if we can work. But you do it. You tell us what you want. Oh, you want to go into November and December? You're cool with that? Fine. You work with the NBA and figure out the arena situation. I mean, that's what I'm telling you. So sometimes it's a lose-lose for the WNBA because they're dealing with a lot. I get what the players are saying. I appreciate what the players are saying. They deserve every bit of revenue sharing that they're asking for. They deserve a hike in pay. They deserve more money. They should be getting every bit of revenue share percentage-wise as any other league is getting. The fact that Asia Wilson, Nafisa Collier, Brianna Stewart, Caitlin Clark, Angel Reese, you name her, Paige Beckers, the fact that they get that much money from a jersey sale is BS. I get it. You guys, you ladies deserve the world. But there are certain things that you're reaching. So there you go.
Willie G. Ramirez of ESPN Las Vegas joining us here on Main Street Sports Today, presented by the Tennessee Orthopedic Alliance of Columbia. Always value Willie's insight on anything, but particularly on the WNBA. You can follow him at Willie G. Ramirez on Twitter. You can also check out his website, WGRamirez.com, for more information. Willie, as always, we appreciate it. Go get your shot, man. Get to feeling better, and maybe mix in another shot, if you know what I mean.
Oh, that's not my.
That's not your thing.
That's not my bag, man. You know what I do? I got a little place down the road here, which I'm not going to say. In case some locals are watching, I got my own little spot, a little glass of red wine. I'm good.
Okay.
Or maybe a hot toddy from time to time, but. Those other shots, those are for my 80s and 90s days. Mom.
I got you. I understand. I understand. When you know better, you do better. Willie, we appreciate it, man. Take care of yourself. If we don't talk to you, have a great holiday season, and we'll catch up.
Let's catch up soon. We'll talk some women's college hoops.
Absolutely. We'll do it. Thank you.
This holiday season, the largest lantern festival in the country returns to Nashville Zoo. Experience more than 1,000 all-new handcrafted lanterns, towering creatures, magical worlds, and a North Pole village. At the center of it all, the Smashville Ice Rink. Welcome back to Zoolumination at Nashville Zoo. Bigger, brighter, and better than ever.
Nashville's Nutcracker, presented by Nashville Ballet, returns to TPAC November 29th through December 28th. This holiday season, audiences will journey with Clara and the Nutcracker Prince through Nashville's history and the land of sweets. Tickets on sale at NashvilleBallet.com.
Jones & Lang Sporting Goods here in Columbia has been outfitting teams, officials, and anybody else from T-ball to college for 50 plus years. Be sure and check them out at 931-388-8060 or online at jonesandlang.com. Jones & Lang Sporting Goods, the look of a winner.
Piggly Wiggly, located in Neely's Mill Shopping Center, is Columbia's locally owned and operated Cost Plus 10 grocery store dedicated to serving the community with low prices and smiling faces. Piggly Wiggly offers fresh, hand-cut meats daily, as well as daily hot plate lunches from their deli counter. You're certain to see smiling faces and a helping hand when you're here at Piggly Wiggly. Come by and check out our fresh produce, high-quality meats, and more. Down home, down the street, we'll see you at the Pig.
Welcome back into Throwback Thursday here on Main Street Sports Today, presented by the Tennessee Orthopedic Alliance of Columbia. That's Calvin White. I'm Maurice Patton. Joining us now from Penalty Box Radio, Ann Kimmel.
Gentlemen, how are ya?
Hey, I'm good, Ann. And as we talked yesterday via text, different background today.
You are enjoying a very different background today. These are the Four Seasons from Warren County, Pennsylvania, where I grew up. Not at all like the autographed Pecorine jersey that y'all are used to, Because fun week here, my husband fell through the ceiling of my office from the attic. There it is in all its glory. And so we're improvising today. You're coming to my new office here in the dining room.
Well, we appreciate you accommodating us, and we hope that Mr. Mama on Ice is okay.
You know what? It's amazing. I watched it happen in real time, and he did not break anything except for a fingernail. So he's doing good. He kind of dangled there for a while and figured out how to get back up. And, I didn't have a new ceiling on my Christmas list, but it has suddenly jumped right up to the top.
Merry Christmas.
So
Yeah.
there it is.
Yeah. I didn't have a new starter on mine either, but
Yep.
life works in mysterious
Merry
ways.
Christmas.
Yeah. It seems as though the Predators have got their ignition going here of late. Every time Wade and I discuss those guys there's no way they're going to win this one, they somehow win this one. I mean, the Avalanche the other night, it's a shootout, but a win's a win, right? And the Avalanche is the hottest team in the league.
Absolutely. This was one of those games where when Colorado scored about a minute and a half into the game, you kind of gird your loins and think, okay, is Colorado going to put a touchdown up on us? But Nashville really found a way, especially in that third period against Colorado, to stick to their game plan and contain Colorado, which is a team that just is full of weapons and has no weakness. With Nathan McKinnon, Cale Makar, they have shored up their goaltending with Scott Wedgwood, Mackenzie Blackwood. Colorado really just doesn't have any weaknesses. So Nashville was able to contain them.
Stop just a second. Colorado has shored up its goaltending with Scott Wedgwood. Now, there are people locally who will recognize that name and would never put that phrase together.
I know. Noted Nashville Predator for 5 minutes, Scott Wedgwood. Yeah, he has just had a phenomenal season with Colorado, has been key for them in a lot of ways. Yeah, he was here for really and truly, it was about 6 minutes. We had Scott Wedgwood. Delightful while we had him.
And when a team plays like that, like they did Tuesday night, who has had the season that the Predators have had, does it have you punching at air? Like, where has this been all year? I mean, what, or is it just they were, punching above their weight for 60 minutes one night?
The Colorado game is an interesting game to have that conversation around, because it wasn't that Colorado came in and stumbled about and lost the game. Nashville really had to win that game against Colorado. And so you think, okay, this may be a team that's starting to put some things together. They've won 5 of their last 7. Part of that is goal scoring. This is a team that struggled to score goals. They've scored 26 goals in these past 7 games, and it's come from 13 different goal scorers. So you're finally getting goal scoring, but you're getting it from a number of sources. You've also had good goaltending from Justus Ananen and Jussi Saros. So a couple of pieces are coming together. But here is the question, and this is something that Andrew Brunette talked about after the Colorado game. The Nashville Predators have a thing with what's next. What's going to happen in the next game? Because sometimes Nashville will win a big game and come out the next game and just struggle and end up losing the game. So it's the what's next. What's going to happen tonight against St. Louis that I think is going to tell us a little bit more about the Nashville Predators.
And here's the thing, Ann, when you talk about what's next, they've won 2 of their last 3. This one on Tuesday night, and at the 2-time defending Stanley Cup champ Panthers.
Yes.
So when they are on their game, clearly they can play with anybody. It's just a matter of getting on their game and staying on their game over an extended period of time. And, to your point, what's next? And you've got a St. Louis team coming in here tonight that isn't great and isn't at full strength.
Right. But now you have to say, okay, is Nashville going to be able to build on what they did with Colorado? And carrying momentum and kind of getting that upward trajectory has not really happened for the team yet this season. They've got 7 games until Christmas to sort of show that they have that. It starts tonight against St. Louis. Saturday night, they're right back at it against Colorado in Colorado. So you've got some games coming up that are going to tell you whether this Colorado game Tuesday night was lightning in a bottle or whether this team is really going to be able to consistently put together performances that are good enough to steal some of these games.
And before the season started, one of the big storylines around the Preds was that they just needed to get off to a good start. When you look at last year when they started, they lost, I think, the first 4 or 5 games of the year and, never really recovered. One of the keys that everybody said was they had to get off to a good start. And they didn't do that this year, but, you've been talking about, obviously they've been playing better. But just from like a mental standpoint, what did they do to, kind of bounce back from that tough start to kind of, they're not totally back at 500 yet, but just hang out a little bit below 500 and play better over these last couple weeks?
Yeah, that's been one of the most interesting things from the outside looking in to watch with this team, because like you said, they knew they needed a hot start and they absolutely did not get it. And then you wonder, what is this team going to do? Because last season was really difficult for these players individually and collectively from a mental standpoint. But it's been really interesting to watch this team, because what has happened is these players have really dug in and they have stayed connected and they've continued to do the work, where I think that most people would assume they're frustrated, they're angry, they're going to turn on each other. Of course, we've heard this rumor talk that it's a toxic locker room. I have to tell you, and I always say this, media, we're like a bikini. We see a lot, we don't see everything in the locker room. But I've also raised 3 teenagers, and I know when somebody is saying some words but meaning the other thing. And I think there's just been a consistent message from these players. We are going to stick together. We are going to do the work. We like each other. We enjoy coming in. We hate the results, but we're going to keep plugging away. And so I'm really actually impressed that Nashville has been able to keep the locker room together and has been able to stay a little bit more mentally tough than they were by the end of last season through this start.
And I texted you, Am, when that toxic thing came out, and you kind of laughed it off a little bit. But when you are in the midst of a stretch like the Predators were in, and everything that has happened with them, I guess over the last season plus, that kind of thing tends to potentially pop up anyway.
Yeah, and I understand why that would be the assumption that people would make. I think that is typically how things go when a team loses like they did last season, where expectations were so dramatically different than results, and that this season started the way it did. It makes sense, and I think it's a fair assumption in sports that what you're going to see is you're going to see some discord, you're going to see disunity, you're going to see this toxic environment, players turning on each other. But I'm telling you, they are not gerbils. They're not eating their own young in this locker room. And it's interesting to me how many people really still want to push back and say, no, that is the narrative. That is what's happening. And I understand that is typically something that happens, but there is something in this locker room. And I give a lot of credit to the leadership group of Ryan O'Reilly, Roman Yossi, Philip Forsberg, where they are just really committed to doing the work. They're committed to getting out of the mud and doing it together. And I think a lot of that credit has to go to the leadership group. I also think it helps that you've got the energy of some of these young guys coming in and playing who just have some joy about being in the NHL. So I think that there are some things that are really keeping what people would, naturally think is this terrible, toxic, divisive locker room from happening. It's really not there. I know it makes a great story. I know it makes it so much more interesting, but it's really nothing that the media are seeing any signs of.
So if it's not toxic, then what is the issue?
I think there are a couple of issues. I don't think that there are issues necessarily in the locker room. I think that there are issues with not having the right pieces. And you look at this roster on paper and you think, okay, this roster should be better than it is. But this is a team that doesn't really have a lot of center depth. And when you don't have high quality guys down the middle, your wingers struggle. And so I think that is part of it is just roster construction. I think part of it is you have a void chronologically when you're talking about, you've got some older veteran players and you've got some younger players, but there's a little bit of a void on this roster of players who have some NHL experience, like a Luke Evangelista, but who still have more years to go. And so I think a lot of it is roster construction. I think a lot of it is there are some holes. I do think there is frustration. I think individual players are not playing their best, but they're starting to find some ways to get a couple players going. Steven Stamkos, he had a 9-game pointless streak. He has broken that. 9 of his 11 points have come since that ended. A lot of that has to do with playing with Ryan O'Reilly and Luke Evangelista. So they're finding ways to unlock some players, but it's just not a roster that's ready to be a contender.
And early on in the year, there were people, when the Preds got off to another slow start, there were people talking like Andrew Burnett was coaching for his job at one point. How much credit does he get for this little mini turnaround?
I give Andrew Burnett a ton of credit, and I know that will ruffle some feathers, but I do think that he has been very, very consistent in what he's asking for from this team. Last year, I think maybe he was a little too consistent and maybe a little inflexible, but I think this season he's come in and he has continued to preach the same message, but he is coaching the players he has. I always say as a parent, you parent the kid you have, not the kid you wish you had. You may want your kid to be in sports, but they might like musical theater. The same thing is true with coaching. And I think Andrew Burnett has taken a look at the individual players and tried to piece them together, but still keeping this team to a system and a structure where they know what is expected of them. And so I give him some credit for that. It has not been an easy season for Andrew Burnett. And I think a lot of people really did want to see Barry Trotz make a change. I don't think that that's going to happen regardless of how the rest of the season goes for the Predators.
Does it need to happen?
Again, this is going to be controversial, but I don't think so. Andrew Burnett was hired to develop a team that was embracing a youth movement. And that really changed when in 2024, Barry Trotz signed Shea, Marchessault, and Stamkos, and you went from a youth movement to we're supposed to be a contender. Now, I think we all know that this is not a contending team, and they are going to have to embrace this youth movement. And I think you give Andrew Burnett a chance to do the job you hired him for before you sort of pivoted. Now, will he be successful at that? I don't know. I do think you have to give him an opportunity to work with some of these young players as they move some veterans out and see if that is the job that he is going to be successful at.
That's really an interesting dynamic that you lay out there, and that he was hired to coach a young team, but you didn't give him a young team to coach.
Absolutely. It was a very different job description the moment that Barry Trotz signed Stamkos, Marchessault, and Shea. It became a totally different job description. And of course, an NHL coach, you coach, again, whatever you're given, regardless of expectations. But that was a huge change from the job that Andrew Burnett was very specifically brought in to do, develop young players and bring this team from a youth movement into down the road in several seasons into a contender. All of a sudden, now here are these veteran players. We're supposed to be a contender. Make it happen. That's a very different job description.
That said, then, how much of this does Barry Trotz wear?
Barry Trotz has had some learning lessons. And I do think that you have to acknowledge that, while I appreciate that he was swinging big, it didn't work. And I think you and Barry Trotz has to say, yeah, this didn't work. And we're going to go back to that youth movement because that's just where Nashville is. Whether they win the next 7 games or not, Nashville really isn't in a place right now. This iteration of the roster is not in a place to become a contender next season or the season after that. So I do think that Barry Trotz swung big and missed. But the good thing about it is he didn't cost Nashville the future that now Andrew Burnett is going to have to coach. So I think there is some responsibility by the front office for taking such a big pivot, it not working out. But at least Barry Trotz didn't sacrifice what Andrew Brunette is going to be working with down the line.
So, all of that said, we should expect some moves here in the next while.
Yes, trade deadline is the first week in March, but absolutely, I do think that Nashville's going to move some players. There's a lot of people talking about Ryan O'Reilly. Of course, Steven Stamkos, Jonathan Marchessault have no move clauses. But if Barry Trotz gets an offer he likes and an offer that those two players like, there is a chance that we could see those players moved. I think you'd have to retain some salary with Steven Stamkos' contract. And they also have some pending unrestricted free agents like a Michael McCarron, Cole Smith, Nick Blankenberg, Eric Halla. So some of those players too, I expect will move as well before the trade deadline.
Do you think the fan base is ready for that eventual, step back to take 3 steps forward?
I do. I do. I think the fan base has been through it. Again, it comes down to expectations versus reality. And I think that's part of why last season was just so painful and the start of this season was so painful. But I think if you tell the fan base, hey, you know what? We're not going to get as many wins because we're bringing in some young players. There is something about that where you feel like even if we lose, we're losing with a purpose. We're developing these players, and we know 3-4 seasons from now, we're going to be back to something way more interesting with more wins. So I do think that the fan base understands where Nashville is. And I do think at this point, they would much rather embrace that than stick around in the mushy middle and kind of just see what happens when nothing's happening.
Losing with a purpose. I like that phraseology there. Somebody at Bridgestone probably needs to grab a hold of that, actually. But
yeah,
again, St. Louis tonight, at Colorado Saturday, at St. Louis Monday. Some familiarity with those opponents, obviously. I don't know what it means for Nashville. It would feel like to me that Colorado is gonna be laying in the weeds a little bit on Saturday night after what just happened.
Yeah, Colorado, that game Saturday night's going to tell you a lot. Again, they've only lost 2 games in regulation this entire season, and they're at home, which is a very difficult place to play. That's going to be a really interesting game that's going to tell you a lot about Nashville. I think it's interesting they're playing St. Louis again. Let's find out, are we seeing some consistency when you're playing these same teams back to back to back to back? Are we going to see some consistency from the Nashville Predators? They also go on to face Carolina, Toronto, the Rangers, and Minnesota before Christmas. This is a tough stretch of hockey, and Nashville's going to have to play their very, very best if they want to continue gathering some wins and some points.
There we go. Ann Kimmel of Pendley Box Radio joining us here on Main Street Sports today, presented by the Tennessee Orthopedic Alliance of Columbia. Ann, what is the ETA on your ceiling?
We have someone coming tomorrow to look at it, so hopefully we'll get it done and be back in business in a week or so.
Goodness gracious. Like I said, we're glad he's okay. Glad you were able to come up with some alternate digs to join us here, and we appreciate your time.
Absolutely. Anytime. Thanks so much, guys.
Thank you. Let's take a break here as we continue Throwback Thursday on Main Street Sports today, presented by the Tennessee Orthopedic Alliance of Columbia. When we come back, we will jump into the grab bag to close things out. Stick around.
When I think of Delta Dental now, it's really their core values. It's the volunteerism, it's the giving back.
Delta Dental gives us 10,000 toothbrushes. So twice a year, we have these children that are going home with food that may not have weekend food, and they're also getting a toothbrush.
The best partners are the ones that truly do impact the community together, and I don't think there's a better example of that than our partnership with Delta Dental.
Being in Tennessee, we wanted to try to keep it as local as possible, so we have an entire section of our menu that is just dedicated to local whiskeys like Uncle Nearest, Jack Daniels, of course, George Dickel, Nelson Brothers, Greenbrier Whiskey, and all of our taps are all local. From 2 o'clock until midnight, we've got food every day for you guys. a good handful of appetizers, some entrees, and a couple salads and things like that. My name is Ethan Kanata. Please come down and see us at the Pick Lobby Bar here at the Omni in Nashville.
The winning just got closer. All new Sportsbook, the latest gaming machines, live horse racing, and more. The Mid Gaming Hall, Kentucky Downs.
Winning just got closer.
Welcome back into Throwback Thursday here on Main Street Sports Today, presented by the Tennessee Orthopedic Alliance of Columbia. That's Calvin White giving you the profile there. I'm Maurice Patton. The battle between NASCAR and Michael Jordan, as many people have framed it, has come to an end, apparently. It was announced earlier today that 2311 and Front Row Motorsports and NASCAR have reached a settlement, as Jenna Fryer of the Associated Press puts it, of a bruising antitrust case in which the Basketball Hall of Famer was the lead plaintiff in a lawsuit accusing the top racing series in the U.S. of being bottom line, as our NASCAR analyst Heather Williams schooled me earlier today when I reached out and said, help. The charters that were being that racing teams were having to purchase are now evergreen, as NASCAR refers to them, permanent, as most of us would say. You buy the charter for the car and you have it until you sell it. It's not renewable, as had been the case previously. And so 2311, excuse me, co-owned by Jordan and Denny Hamlin and Front Row Motorsports, raced without charters this past year while this was being litigated. Well, they now will be able to purchase their evergreen charters, 3 for each team, basically, because you buy 1 for each car that you're putting on the track. And so they will be able to do that and move forward. And it was a situation that, again, both 2311 and Front Row thought was unfair, that NASCAR was, flexing their monopoly in a bullying manner, apparently. So it got to this point. The district judge that was over this said that he wished that they could have come to this settlement long ago, but everybody seems to be ready to move on from it at this point. So that's been settled, and guarantees 36 teams a spot in every top level Cup Series race and a portion of the revenue stream. Teams have argued for over 2 years that the charters needed to be made permanent. They had been revocable by NASCAR, and that revenue sharing had to change. And so this settlement gets to that after 2 years, that began with a take it or leave it offer from NASCAR in September of 24 that, again, 2311 and Front Row wouldn't sign. So happy day for NASCAR, apparently. Again, Kenneth Bell, I wish we could have done this a few months ago. I believe this is great for NASCAR, great for the future of NASCAR, great for the entity of NASCAR, great for the teams, and ultimately great for the fans. Meanwhile, as we talked to Heather last week, I think it was, there will probably be some fallout from this because of the discovery that took place leading up to this, where some not great things were said about some key players in NASCAR, Richard Childress being among them. So stay tuned for the fallout. But this, at least, is over.
Yeah, I was about to ask you to explain this to me like I was 5. I think David and Heather both would tell you that I am not the resident NASCAR expert. But if there was anybody that has the power to challenge NASCAR, it's probably Michael Jordan. And just from reading through this AP story, it sounds like NASCAR tried a little bit more to soften the blow than fully deny that they did anything wrong. So I guess this opens up opportunities for all the drivers and things like that. So I guess tip your cap to Michael Jordan.
Yeah, and I think he's acknowledged that fact as well, Calvin, that he was probably the one of the few who could take on NASCAR in this manner. I mean, they stood to lose millions. Like, I think the number I saw was 300 million if this didn't go in their direction. So, ain't a whole lot of folks out there that could afford to lose that kind of money on a court case. But Michael Jordan was able to do that and kind of, to some degree, kind of put the sport on his back in an effort to get what he and others felt like was an unfair situation dealt with. So, like you said, tip your cap to Michael Jordan there, getting it done in court instead of on the court there. Nice deal. Thursday night football tonight. Atlanta goes to Tampa Bay, and on one hand, you feel like this should be a rollover for the host Buccaneers, but on the other hand, you remember that this same Buccaneers team just 4 or 5 days ago lost to New Orleans. So who knows? Can Atlanta come up with anything at 4-9 for the 7-6 Buccaneers, who are still in the mix for the postseason? They technically are the number one team in the NFC South, although Carolina has an identical record. But Tampa's had its issues. The Falcons have certainly had their issues. And do not adjust your sets for this one. Neither team will be wearing white jerseys. Atlanta will be wearing their black jerseys. Tampa Bay will be in their creamsicle orange tonight. It's a throwback night for Tampa Bay. It's the first time in a couple of seasons that there will be an NFL game played with neither team wearing white jerseys, and the Titans were involved in the last one, if I remember correctly. Titans Falcons in week 8 of the 2023 season. Falcons wore their black and the Titans wore their Columbia blue. So that might be the thing that makes this game worth watching, but
yeah, the creamsicles aren't very fun to look at, but they are an iconic jersey in Tampa Bay. And I think we talked about this last week. I think it was the Cowboys and somebody were playing Thursday night football, and we talked about how tough of a year it was going to be to make the playoffs in the NFC. Obviously if you win the division you're in, but you mentioned that Carolina sitting right there behind the Bucks, and Bucks got off to a good start. People were talking about Baker Mayfield as the early MVP favorite, and even the Falcons. They've picked up, even though they've only won 4 games, they picked up some pretty solid wins. They beat the Bills early on in the season. But, obviously this would be big for either team, going down the stretch if they can maintain some consistency and maybe try to find a way to, tighten up the division race and maybe sneak into the playoffs.
I don't know if Raheem Morris is coaching for his job. I don't know if that decision's already been made. I don't know if he's in danger, but the Falcons did not look very good at all this past weekend against Seattle. So, again, I don't know what they can have for the Bucks, but you wouldn't have expected Tampa Bay to lose to New Orleans, who is among the top teams in Tankathon right now. So I don't know what you're going to get out of the Bucks, like you said, despite there being some expectations for that team coming into the season. So, again, may not be worth watching, but then again, You never know. That's why they tee it up. Um, Oklahoma City demolished Phoenix last night, 138-89 in the quarterfinals of the NBA Emirates Cup, which even listening to Wade talk about this thing, I still don't necessarily get the in-season tournament thing. What I do get is that the Thunder is now 24-1 with that win, which ties Golden State for the best start in NBA history. 24-1.
Yeah, and that 15-16 Warriors team was the 73-9 team that ended up losing to LeBron and the Cavs in the finals. But you know what they say, it don't mean a thing without the ring. But
they do.
But
They
yeah,
do.
But last year the Thunder just mowed through everybody, and they were talking about how the Thunder were that they had already claimed the Thunder as a potential dynasty, and through a quarter of the season this year they looked apart. There's just no holes. I mean, they just mow through everybody. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander seems like he gets 25 to 30 every night. He's kind of put himself in the same conversation as Nikola Jokic for the best player in basketball. But they're just so good on defense. And I think they're it might sound like hyperbolic, but I think the Thunder are probably one of the few teams that you'll actually see out there hustling on defense and things like that, like diving on the floor for balls and just playing defense for the full shot clock. But there's just no holes in any part of that team, and so far, unless somebody gets hurt or another team emerges, I'd imagine the Thunder have to be the favorite again to win the NBA Finals.
It certainly didn't hurt for OKC that Devin Booker wasn't available last night. Strained right groin kept him out of that matchup. But the Thunder led 74-48 at the half. You mentioned SGA. That was his 96th straight game with at least 20. He finished with 28.
That's ridiculous.
And it really is 20 plus in 96 straight games. That's nuts. And it wouldn't be Phoenix without a Grayson Allen incident. Was ejected in the third period when he shoved Chet Holmgren. Apparently they collided when Holmgren was trying to set a screen, and Allen, with the two-handed shove of Holmgren, called for a flagrant 2 and was tossed with about 5 minutes left in the third. So again, Grayson going Grayson. Oklahoma City advances to the Cup semifinals on Saturday against San Antonio, and the Spurs may have Victor Wembanyama back for that one. Has missed about the last 4 weeks. And all indications are that he's going to be back from his left calf injury when those two meet up, and San Antonio might need it. I'm sure David will be paying close attention to that development as well. So OKC 24-1 going into their semifinal matchup on Saturday against San Antonio. Be sure and keep an eye on that. That is going to do it for Throwback Thursday here on Main Street Sports Today, presented by the Tennessee Orthopedic Alliance of Columbia. Be sure and join us tomorrow at 2. It'll be me and David Wilson here with you as we talk about things from preps to pros. We'll see you then. Have a great Thursday night.